A potentially once-in-a-lifetime event that will bring all eyes to the sky. A total solar eclipse is on the horizon, and joining us with insights into this rare astronomical event is Dr. Joe Carson, professor in the Department of Physics and Astronomy at the College of Charleston. Dr. Carson, I want to thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me here.
And so this is the second solar eclipse that we had one back in 2017, second one in 7 years. Is that rare?
It is rare. For a given location to have a full solar eclipse, that usually is offset by about 400 years. We're not going to get a second full eclipse. We're getting a 3/4 eclipse, but it is still rare. The next major one after this will probably be about, should be about 20 years from now.
Mm-hmm. And so what makes this total solar eclipse, or, well, there's other places in North America that will see the total solar eclipse, correct?
Yeah, so this one, it's actually the shadow that's cast by the moon blocking the sun, and that shadow effectively travels across North America. So it's going to be entering in Mexico, and that shadow is going to cross Mexico and then enter in Texas, cross Dallas, through Illinois, and then up to Canada. So all those places on that path are going to experience a full solar eclipse. Well, here in Charleston, we're going to get a mostly solar eclipse.
Okay, so like a 3/4 solar eclipse?
Yeah, 3/4 of the sun will be gone for about 4 minutes.
Okay, and is there anything about this one in particular that makes it noteworthy?
I think the fact that we've had one so recently, I think every solar eclipse is interesting. Anytime we have one, there's studies that are done, atmospheric studies that are done. So it's exciting anytime we have one. I don't know if this is necessarily, you know, better or worse than a previous one. I guess it depends on your opinion or where you are at that time.
And I would like you to expand on those studies that are done. Can you talk about some of the contributions that total solar eclipses have played in, you know, scientific research over the years?
Yeah, absolutely. So arguably some of the most impactful scientific investigations in all human history have happened because of the solar eclipses. Probably the most famous one is that's how Albert Einstein proved his theory of relativity was during a full solar eclipse. And he actually showed that light bends around the sun. And he was able to see that because during a full solar eclipse, the stars come out. And he showed that starlight was bending around the sun. That's probably the most significant scientific measurement that was made. There's a whole slew of historical measurements. Christopher Columbus owes his life to managing to predict a solar eclipse, which let him extract himself from some very, very angry indigenous people in the Caribbean at the time. So there's a lot of history associated with solar eclipses.
Do you think that this one, is there anything in particular that will be studied based on this solar eclipse?
I think some of the ones that are this, I know there's a number of groups in the US that are doing, it's looking at the impact on radio transmissions, seeing how when we block off the sun is a huge source of radio outbursts, and actually just in general energy outbursts. So we hear it in our satellites, we hear it all sorts of radio communications. There's a lot of studies that are going on about that. And then there's just a slew of satellites that are just pointed at the sun all the time that are trying to better understand it for astrophysical reasons as well as practical reasons for helping communication.
And now something that we hear a lot is the safety precautions that are in place for a total solar eclipse. What are some of the precautions that we need to take?
The main one is don't look at the sun unless you're wearing proper eye protection. Even if it doesn't seem like it's that bad or it doesn't seem like your eyes are hurting. Probably the most dangerous part about looking at the sun is the fact that when a child touches a hot pot, right, they get burnt and they remember that. They don't do it again, they stop. But when you look at the sun, it's your retina that very often is what gets burnt, and your retina doesn't have pain receptors. So you can often get burned or you can do damage without knowing it. And that's actually the really dangerous part is not knowing that you've been burned.
And now, so in Charleston, we're gonna see a partial solar eclipse. It will still be significant. What can we expect to see?
Yeah, so there's a number of things that happen. So the, it'll get dimmer during the day, although it's not going to get dark. There's not going to be stars out at night. Some of the things that do happen, and should the temperature drops a little bit. One of the things that you might notice is that shadows start changing a lot. One of the things is that all shadows start getting sharper because the sun is now restricted to basically a smaller section of the sky. So it's coming at a very well-defined angle as opposed to multiple angles. Another thing that I'd recommend trying doing is go under a tree that has a lot of fluttering leaves, like a maple tree or something, or some of our oak trees. And what you should be able to see is actually these dazzling crescents that are the crescent sun that you're seeing projected on the ground. It has to do with the light that's filtering through the leaves. When the light source is coming from a crescent, you'll actually see these dazzling patterns of crescents. You can even do, if you're not around a tree, or even if you are, you can also try taking a colander or a kitchen strainer and holding it up, and sometimes you might see this strange effect, the same thing where you see these crescents. And animals and insects often react to these environmental effects too.
How interesting is this? And now this is happening on Monday, April 8th.
Correct.
Make sure you have protective glasses.
Yes, definitely.
And go under one of our beautiful trees. Dr. Carson, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
We're back after this.